Hi guys. My second case study was on classroom curriculum as counseling. The case states, a teacher asks you to help the class deal with a terminal illness and imminent death of one of their classmates. You have had limited training in grief counseling. What do you do? When thinking about this case, a few points that I think need to be considered are how equipped are you to handle this situation? Since this particular case states there's been very little training for the counselor on grief counseling, collaborating with other school staff and community partners would be beneficial. Notifying all parents of the sensitive issues that will be addressed in any lessons, giving several lessons both before and after the death of the student, staying involved with the class and students as they continue to walk through the grieving process, especially if you're having outside help come in and do those lessons. I think it's important that you stay very active and involved with the students so that they feel maybe more comfortable. And then also continue to seek training and education on how to handle similar traumatic life events in the future. Next, I'll go through some of the ethical codes I found relevant to this case. The first one is under supporting student development, and it states, school counselors aim to provide counseling to students in a brief context and support students and families and guardians in obtaining outside services if the student needs long-term clinical counseling. This one is relevant in providing the individual and classroom counseling, but also in giving outside resources to students and families who may need someone with greater expertise or long-term counseling. The next few fall under appropriate referrals and advocacy. They state, school counselors collaborate with all relevant stakeholders, including students, educators, parents, and guardians, when student assistance is needed, including the identification of early warning signs of student distress. Next, provide a list of resources for outside agencies and resources in their community to students and parents and guardians when students need or request additional support. School counselors provide multiple referral options or the district's vetted list and are careful not to indicate an endorsement or preference for one counselor or practice. School counselors encourage parents to interview outside professionals to make a personal decision regarding the best source of assistance for their student. And next, connect students with services provided through the local school district and community agencies, and remain aware of state laws and local district policies related to students with special needs, including limits to confidentiality and notification to authorities as appropriate. I thought these were relevant if the counselor chooses to bring in outside resources with greater expertise to assist in the lessons that they're going to give to the whole class. And also the resources for students who may need more than the school can provide. The last one falls under responsibilities to parents and guardians, school and self. It states, school counselors provide parents and guardians with accurate, comprehensive, and relevant information in an objective and caring manner, as is appropriate and consistent with ethical and legal responsibilities to the student and parent. And I think this one is relevant because it will be important to notify the parents of the lessons that you intend to do in the classroom, especially because of the sensitivity of this subject. For my approach, I would follow the same approach as the professional in the book. So the first thing that I would do is to notify the parents of the situation and the upcoming lessons that I intend to do with the students in that class. Then I would find another professional who's been trained and is more knowledgeable with children and grief, so that I have a resource to get information from and also to refer students and families to if need be. Next, I would seek help from a local hospice organization who could come in and do lessons with the students. And during that time, I would be sure to be very much a part of those lessons um, so that the students might feel a little more comfortable. These lessons would be done prior to and after the death of the student. Lastly, I would continue to research and learn more about how I can handle these traumatic life events in the future. I would definitely consult with others in this particular case. I would consult with other counselors, if any, in my building, especially if they are trained in dealing with this particular situation. And again, I would reach out to a local hospice and outside sources with greater expertise. Another thing I think is important to note is that there's lots of different types of traumatic events. Um, some other types that could be, brought up in your building might be homelessness, witnessing domestic violence, incarcerated parent, and many more. And in 2016, ASCA adopted a position statement that states the school counselor and trauma-informed practice, which recognizes that school counselors are key players in promoting a trauma-sensitive environment at school. Counselors should do their best to create conditions that help children succeed even through these traumatic life events. So in order to do that, counselors should recognize the signs of trauma in students, promote safe, nurturing relationships, implement effective academic and behavioral practices, focus on resilience and strengths, avoid re-traumatizing the student, and create connected communities and positive school climates that keep students involved in positive social networks. Another helpful thing to do with situations similar to this one would be to already have resources readily available to students and their families through a counseling website. The website could include tips for parents and students, resources for various types of traumatic events, and would be very user-friendly. This next slide was just a TED Talk that I found about children and grief called No Child Should Ever Grieve Alone. And I just put this in here because I thought it had some really great points and some positive takeaways to think about when going into counseling and knowing that these sort of events will take place. A couple discussion questions that came to my mind when working through this case were, number one, how do you address this situation with the parents and or guardians of the terminally ill child? And number two, if a parent does not want their student to participate in the classroom lessons, what would you have them do instead?